Hi, welcome to the Drawing Solo podcast. My name is Mason McKinney, and I'm with.
The original Harley Rose.
And if you want to learn how to get inspiration from anywhere, subscribe to my newsletter and receive a PDF that'll show you how to do so. My gift to you. So, where are you from?
Well, I am from Venezuela,
Oh,
a Caribbean country.
how long have you been living there?
All my life, I was born here.
Wow, how can you describe it for? Can you give a quick description for the people listening of how do you
Well,
think about your surroundings?
it's a beautiful country, very hot, very sunny, but it's beautiful. And we, the people, we are as warm as the country itself.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, can you tell us what do you create?
Well, I am an illustrator. I do many things, but my favorite one is illustration.
Oh, illustration. What are your subjects of illustrating?
Well, I like to draw comic characters, but I
Mm.
really haven't drawn any comics yet.
You draw comic characters, but you haven't drawn comics yet. That
Yeah.
sounds like you create a lot of fan art. Is that correct?
No, most of them are original characters.
Oh, original characters. Oh, why well, so do all these characters have their own stories or what why do they not have any comics of these characters yet?
Because I'm writing them.
Oh, you are in the process of writing them.
Yeah.
What is your comics called?
Well, I have one that it's about two people
Hmm.
that just met under the worst circumstances ever, and they just have to find out how to get along to solve their own personal problems. But it has a lot of things. It's a very full story.
Okay, okay. So can you tell us why do you create?
I started drawing when I was very little, but I got serious with it when I graduated high school and someone asked me what I was gonna study for college. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do psychology or something. And then they said, but why? If you have such an amazing talent, why would you waste it like that? And that's when it clicked and I got into graphic design, and it's the best decision I've ever made.
That's such an interesting take because you usually hear, well, from my perspective, you usually hear people say if you have an artistic inclisivities, you people would honestly would rather have artists or creatives work for somebody else or do art or do creative things as a side gig and would put more quote unquote professional practices such as psychology on up on a pedestal over creative aspects. But like when you said that this person told you that you should pursue art over psychology is a very interesting uh, change of pace. Well,
Yes.
what was your thoughts on psychology since you were originally into that?
Well, I did like it, but it wasn't because it was my passion or because I wanted to actually help people. It was because here in my country, the economy, I don't know if you heard about it, but it's kind of hard. It's kind of messed up. So most of the people study things that give them money. So psychology was like an excuse to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started researching the career, the graphic design career, I found that it actually makes money too itself because you can work it for a company or you can work by yourself. And then I changed my perspective because I did like psychology, but not as much as I liked art.
Okay. I hear two different sides of a coin to this idea, to this pathway. On one side, I hear if you pick what you love to do, you won't have to work a day in your life. But on the other side, I hear as soon as you start getting paid of doing your passion or doing what you love, you start growing out of it.
Kinda.
Like
It does happen.
which side of this spectrum do you find yourself on?
Well, the graphic design isn't really close to what I wanna do in the art field. So the graphic design is for the money, to have money to spend on my art. So it's
Mhm.
like it's a way to be safe here. And
Okay.
it's also a career that I can do on foreign countries. So I can take it with me.
What do you plan on taking your all right, when you have when you have the set amount of money that you wish to have, what do you plan on taking your art? What is the next level of your art? What does it look like?
Like drawing a lot for fun in my free time.
Oh, okay, that makes
Like
sense.
just to be on my porch sipping on a cup of coffee maybe and having my block in there with plenty of colors to choose from and create without a worry in my mind.
Okay, I get you. I get you. Uh, Sorry me if I asked this before, but why do you create?
Because I love it. And I remember something that happened on the first day of my college career. My teacher asked me the same question: why did you choose this career? And I interpreted it as why you create. And I remember I said I create because there's many things in my mind that I wanna put out, like express myself. And she said, I think you chose the wrong career because graphic design isn't about it. And I was like, nah, I think you're wrong. And I graduated with honors. So I create because I have lots of things in my mind, a lot of stories. And also, I see things that inspire me in real life, and I want to show them how I see it.
What is graphic design to you?
Graphic design is about rules, as
Mhm.
I studied. It's about rules. But you can also break those rules, but you have to know them first. So it's about finding the perfect balance between breaking the rules and following them.
It's I want to go back to when she said when you said that you wanted to express yourself and she said graphic design isn't then you found yourself in the wrong career. And from my personal perspective, I went to college for graphic design and advertising, and I understood what she was coming from with that because when
Yeah,
I was taking the course, it was all about the client, what do they want, what are their needs. If they want 40 thumbnails, you're gonna do it in 2 days, and if you and you're gonna scrap 90% of what you make, you gotta scrap around 90% of what you make. It really doesn't matter what your thoughts about it. All you are is essentially replaceable in a sense of when I see AI, I hate to go on to like this topic because I feel like that topic is done to death, but it felt like they just needed robots who could draw. And when I was that's the feeling that I got when I was taking graphic design and advertising is there was little amounts of personal input. It was just they needed somebody who knew those rules, who knew the specific rules of like hierarchy and elements of design. Uh, they needed somebody who knew all that and form all the information that they wanted to form in a very specific way. But you see this as a way of personal expression. Can you go a little bit more into that?
of course, yeah. Well, that's what she said. She said that graphic design wasn't about me or my expressions, it was about the client. And I think that 2 years into the career, right before graduating, I think I understood it because it made sense then. But when I started the career, it was like, no, I just want to do art. But Yeah, graphic design is about a client, but it has plenty of branches to take from. And illustration is one of them. So I plan to, in the future, continue my career because I graduate to an associate degree.
Mm.
So I plan to continue and take that branch, illustration, something more art related to say.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I want to go back to the stories that you want to tell with your with your comic ideas. And I noticed that you said you had one story. You explained one of your stories, and that kind of caught my eye. I know I'm listening right now, but I like saying it caught my eye even though I'm listening. Um, but I noticed that you said one of your stories. How many stories do you have in your mind that you're currently working on?
Well, I am writing about, officially writing about three stories,
Mm-hmm.
but I have in my notes, I have like six.
Oh wow. Do you have like which ones do you have the 7 words for?
Well, I really didn't thought about it.
Oh wow.
I really I just have them all in my mind.
Okay.
So it's like I really can't describe them in 7 words. It's too hard for me because I think about everything at the same time. So 7 words, I don't know if I can do that.
Let's see if I can phrase this in a different way. What are what do you want to say with your stories? What do you want the audience to take away from your stories?
Well, I'd like that my stories represented that that they were relatable.
Hmm.
Like people can relate to them and think, I I have experienced that because most of them are about something I experienced or I saw someone else experience.
Hmm.
So it's like I want them to be fun, but true. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wait, can you go a little bit deeper in what makes a relatable character?
Well, just like people isn't perfect because if you have a character that is the strongest man in the planet and he has 7 different powers to choose from and lives in like a mansion or something, that's not something that people can relate to, or not all people. So to make true characters, to make believable characters.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of how the most believable characters are characters with flaws or something to hide because not everybody has their emotions on their sleeves. And
Yeah, exactly.
when we and the one thing that every human can relate to is struggle. So as long as like some as we see a character is struggling to get from point A and from point A to point B, and like that goal is something that everybody can see themselves wanting to achieve or understand why that character would want to achieve it. I that wouldn't you say that's a that I feel like that would be a very relatable character. What are your thoughts about that?
Just like you described it, like flaws.
Yeah,
People,
absolutely.
characters with flaws, they are the most believable. And I'm sorry for my bad pronunciation sometimes.
Oh no, you're. I've been stuttering this whole podcast. You're just fine.
Thanks.
So, what do you want to see more in your creative field?
I want to see more, and it sounds redundant, but I want to see more creativity because
Creativity.
from some years ago to now, I just see the same style, people trying to recreate their favorite artist and having no personal essence in their art style. It's like, I don't know, to name a famous artist, I could say Casey Golden, for
Mm.
example. She's an artist I admire, and I did learn some things from her, but still I apply them with my personal signature, for to say it in a way. But I've seen a lot of people doing the same and the same and the same and the same over and over and over again.
What can you describe creativity for me? Because we see
Well,
you said you like we need to see more of it. Not enough people have it. What is creativity? What does that mean to you?
I think personal sense, like what differentiates your art from other, like what do people see
Hmm.
when you do art?
Well, as in people finding their own voice
Yeah,
within their own.
something like that.
Yeah. How could people find? How could what would you say to people who are in need to find their own voice?
Well, I would tell them to just
Hmm.
explore their techniques. It's not necessarily about perfect art or perfect anatomy or color theory. It's just about what you make. It's about your your personal sense, the thing that makes it yours. So I will tell them to explore and do everything they can and experiment a lot because as I told you at the beginning, I do many things. I paint, I illustrate digitally, traditionally, and yet I I haven't found something that I said this is my thing, but I enjoy every single thing that I do. So it's about it. It's about enjoying it, I think.
What you said earlier was very interesting. When you said people focus a lot on anatomy or color theory, it doesn't really matter if you don't really have your own voice. And that takes me back and taking art classes back when I was in high school or just school in general. When you're in school, they just tell you the basics. They show you how to build anatomy, how to use color. And I'm not saying those are not important, but I
Yes,
find
of
it's a
course.
very interesting take on saying what is your how like what is your language? How do you how can you say speak through art, speak visually?
Yeah, that's a very accurate way to say it, like a language.
Because it's we kind of it reminds me of when you give children like colors, like just any kind of anything to make a mess with. They'll just make splotches. I wouldn't call that art, but it is an expression. It is energy on a page.
Yeah, they trying to tell you something.
I'm I wouldn't say that. I probably
So in a
I
way
yeah.
that I was a very expressive kid, so
Yes.
I did many messes trying to say things.
Like what at the same time, like what experiences do kids have in a way? What experiences do kids have other than I need my mother, I need care of my mother and father and food and diaper change
Yeah,
and
but I
and
think I
energy.
will refer to older kids maybe.
Okay. Yeah. I'm hey, I can agree with that in a sense. Uh like it's takes me it connects my mind connects to uh abstract art, and I notice how usually when I go out in the market or I go to any sort of art market that has art involved, I see more and more how what do you say abstract art being made. And I for me personally, I have a very weird relationship when it comes to abstract art, and it comes down to the individual's perspective of what art means. Do what are your thoughts on abstract art?
Well, I liked it to a certain point because I've seen people like paint a dot on the middle of a canvas and call it abstract, and it's like I mean, yeah, but what about it?
Hmm.
I liked it. I do like it as long as it's like not just a blotch of paint in a canvas.
It's very interesting when it's like when you're thinking about when you're looking at it, and it's hard to separate the art from what is the intention of the artist. It's that's something that I get hung up when I see a lot of art, and when or I would be more specific when artists say let it speak for itself, and I find that as a weird way of sidestepping meaning within art. And I guess I would say everybody sees everybody can look at a subject and come out of it with two completely different things or two completely different takeaways, and the audience can force an idea onto the art that the artist doesn't agree with, and
Yeah,
it brings the whole subjectivity of art to a weird light where if everybody has their own spin on it and the artist, the author of that piece does not have a say in it, does it should we even consider that piece of art as worth our time to begin with? What are your thoughts on that?
well, it's like kind of mm, a dichotomy
Mm-hmm.
between what people think and what the art is. That happened to me once. I think I wrote a poem about my lover from that time, and it was about the stars. It was about the galaxy and stuff, and how he was, all of that. And my mom read it, and she thought that it was about something. And then I showed it to a friend, and she thought it was about something else. And it went on and on. So it's like it wasn't about any of that. So it's fun. It's funny to see what people think, like how everyone has a different say in it. Like you said, it's like it is worth the time to analyze and get to your own conclusions and to your own ideas. But it also can have no meaning or just one meaning or any of the meanings. And it's kind of interesting to see how people sometimes go to war thinking about it,
It's
arguing about it.
I yeah, it's a very weird. It's a very interesting thing to think about. I would honestly I honestly have a thought when it comes to I like having my art very specific. I should say. Uh, for me, it's more of I need to know what the artist is saying, how they're saying it, and how that piece of art is executed. I guess it's just my one track mind. Because if I don't go in knowing having an idea of what to think about or not to what to think about, but what they're trying to say, I could go indulge in other pieces of media when it where I know what they're trying to say and I analyze how they're saying it. Everybody everybody digests the media that they consume completely differently, and everybody has different reasons when they uh, enjoy art. Um, or how would what would you say to that? Like, what are some of the ways or that you uh, consume art?
Where
Or
I am a very visual person,
mm-hmm.
so most of the media I consume is through my eyes, as redundant as it sounds. I like to look at it, to just enjoy the little details, and I think I look at it too much because I can find myself for minutes or even a long while staring at things. But in the digest part, the colors and the shapes play a very important role, and also about the things that I'm consuming, like the story, or if it's just a piece of art. It is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's mostly visual.
Mm.
And then when I have watched it, when I have enjoyed it, and then I come to a conclusion like what it made me felt or what I thought about it.
Okay. Who was your favorite visual artist? Visual artist. One more time.
If I had to choose one, it would be Casey Golden.
Casey Goldum. What is it about Casey's art that inspires you?
It was completely different to what I was accustomed, I think that's the word, to see. Because when you were my age, I was like probably 14 at the moment. I was accustomed to very neat art, to anime art, like, deviant art, perfect art
Right.
styles, the anatomy, the colors, it was all anime. And then I went on YouTube and I found this artist. It just showed up on my feed. She did, at the moment, she was doing cubism, and the characters were like, what is that? Like, why is the nose like that? Why is the shape of the face like that? What is this? I started watching her videos, and the way she colored, the way she did everything, it just caught my heart completely because it was so different to what I was seeing everywhere.
So it was more of a breath of fresh air in this
Yeah,
sense. Do you think that
in a
like
way, yeah.
do you think it like that contributes to what you want to see more of art because you were so because when you came into the space it was everybody having this weird I guess you would say ancestral uh, inspirations when it comes to how they make their art. Everybody's art was more or less the same, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember my friends, I had like a little group of friends. We were all drawing. And I started drawing kind of because of them.
Hmm.
Because I did draw, but I started doing it more often when I met them and they draw. And so it was all, I was surrounded by art. So I started doing it more. And we kind of drew all the same, like these Sonic characters. The, how do you call them? I can remember.
OCs or was it what they call them?
Yeah, the OCs with the Sonic eyes, and it was. I remember I did it very bad, but I did it, and and then I found this girl drawing that. Like at the first time that I saw it, it was like, what is this? This is so ugly. But then it started to make sense because I started to watch her videos more, and it kind of influenced me to get out of my comfort zone and stop making the same as everyone. And I started to explore my own style because I was influenced by my friends, by the style of my friends because I saw them every day at school. We draw every day at school, so I was influenced by them. And then when I broke out of that, when I started doing my thing, it was like, what am I doing? I doubted it. It was so weird to do something out of the little circle I was in, the little bubble I was in.
What are some of the new influences do you would you say that are inside your art?
Well, apart from Casey,
Yes.
I I have a list of artists actually. One of them is Gabriel Piccolo.
Hmm. What is about Gabrielle's art that draws you to him?
The colors, the
Mm.
palettes, the way he used. I mean, I just see it and I'm completely in love with it because I found him for the comic of Icarus and the Sun, and I remember I was still young. I was like 16, and I didn't knew much about art. But when I found him, it was like this is so beautiful. It was like watching a Renaissance painting in front of my eyes because I didn't knew anything about it, and he just was there like, wow, this is so perfect.
What do you think? Uh, what do you think? How would I phrase this? What are your thoughts on people's infatuation with color?
Infatuations.
I would say that people are more close to things that are bright and colorful over more muted color palettes.
Well,
What?
I think that personally, I am drawn to all of the color spectrum. I think because if you look at, for example, Da Vinci, his art was very mellow, but still it was stunning. And then you look at now and the colorful, the art on the media is very bright and saturated, and it's still good. And I personally am drawn to all of the color spectrum.
Hmm. I understand that. I guess what I wanted to say is the how does color affect the art that you make? Can
It
you?
depends.
Yes.
It depends because as I said, I am drawn to all the spectrum, so I make art and the color on it based pretty much on what I wanna put onto that piece. Like if I want it to be so expressive, like I need to work on the palette right. Because for example, I did a drawing of me and my best friend. We are like two completely different people. We are like the yin and yang, to say it in a cliche way. So the colors, they are not just black and white. I remember I used orange and blue for her, and red and like a mute blue for me. So it's about it. It's about what I want to represent in that drawing. I also have a piece that is completely blue because it is really sad. And I'm not saying that blue is a sad color because that's my favorite color. But I remember it was a college assignment of the same teacher that told me that I was on the wrong career. She said, make a piece using blue and what it makes you feel. And at the moment, the blue made me feel sad because my dad used to use a blue t-shirt. So when I thought about the blue t-shirt, I felt sad because my dad passed. So I made the the assignment. I made kind of like a siren. She was looking down and crying, and it was all blue. But then it became my favorite color. So now I use it to do completely the opposite. So the color influences, no, like in reverse. My art is very influenced by the colors and what they make me feel sometimes.
That reminds me of when I was doing research when I was in graphic art and graphic design and advertising, and one of the things that I was reminded of was how different colors would mean how would have different symbols across different cultures, and like how yellow in one culture would be read as cowardice, while on another culture it would be courageous.
Yeah, that also expands to many things. For example, red here in Venezuela is associated with politics, and we kind of repel it because of that. So yeah, the color plays a very important role in the mind of people in cultures and many things.
So just like the entire color, like just the entire color of red. It's just an umbrella. It's just I guess I would say this like the entire color of red. It just encompasses all of the politics.
No, it's very specific.
Uh huh.
What do you call it? Um, Party.
Okay. The parties. Oh yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
It's
it's a very specific party, and we like repel it because of that.
it's very interesting because it all comes down to it comes down to marketing as well.
Yeah.
When it like when I was doing research, I remember when you wanted purple, it would be if you wanted to appeal to more a female audience, you would use colors like purple, kind of like Dove or royalty colors, because historically purple was is the color of royalty, because purple was the hardest color to manufacture, from I remember,
Yes,
and
and for like women's product,
mhm.
I think it's mostly pink, and then men is blue. So yeah, in marketing plays a very important role too. I remember when we saw that in college, and the people were their minds were blown because most of the things they used they were color coded, and they didn't even notice until then we saw that class, and they all were like, "Wow."
Okay. What's the most important lesson that you learned through your graphic design experience?
I learned many lessons, but if I had to choose one as the most important, is the one about the rules. To break them, you need to know them. So it goes hand to hand with the thing in art that the anatomy, the color theory, it is important, but not as important as doing the thing.
So you to for so for me to repeat that back, doing the so you would say like doing the thing is more important than just taking all of the knowledge in or just learning it. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, kinda, because if you don't do the thing, then you can learn from the thing.
Yes,
I
you
think,
learn as you go. Absolutely.
yeah, like it is important to know, but what does the knowledge serves to you if you don't apply it then, or if you don't like play with it?
I get
Like
you.
people, I mean, realism is a cool art style. It's very hard, and I admire people who do that. But it isn't the only art style that is hard to do. For example, I had some friends. They were like, "Yeah, we have to do realism if we wanna do anything else, because if we don't master realism, then we are not real artists."
Oh
And I
yes.
was like, that's kind of not true,
Hmm.
but like I respected it.
As I grew up, I understand why there was such a hard push for realism because once you conquer, well, quote unquote, conquer realism, then and all of the graphics, all the print, what was it, elements and principles of design, then you can essentially draw anything, anything that there is to draw with your human eye. But the weird reality is of what I understand, what I perceive, is people are going to hire you if you want to get a job. People are mostly going to hire you to do one specific thing. They expect you to do one thing and do it well, and that's
Yes,
what I notice.
it is important to do like master something.
Yes, because you have people who have jobs in drawing people. I notice a lot of people really like drawing people or environments or props or clothing, anything industrial design, cars. I see a lot of people trying to draw cars, and having that understanding of realism is pretty good. Is great, but very few people actually get there. And from my personal take, I don't think people should have that feel that they need to get there. They just need to go from point A to point B and you will pick things up on along the way.
Yeah, we share that opinion because it is important, but it is not the only thing to master in the arts.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have this sort similar mindset when it comes to writing your characters?
Sort of, I think.
What is your process of creating characters?
Most of them are born out of nowhere. Like, for example, I have this character that it's called Lola Cola, and I think you can imagine what it is. It is just an humanized version of Coke
Okay,
because I really like the soda. So,
it's the branding. It's
yeah, of course. I really liked it. So, I was drinking it and I was drawing and I was like, I want to draw, but I don't know what. And I saw the bottle in there, like, oh, well, that's interesting. And I started drawing, and it just went on, and it was born. Most of them are born like that, and the process for the story itself it comes later.
mm. So how like what is your process of creating stories? Have you gotten that far?
I do have one that is finished, but it's just a little tale about an artist.
Mm.
It is mostly like the beginning, the tie or the plot, and then the end. It's a three-part story. It's a three-part process for most of the short ones because I have longer ones, and I like to take turns and twists and explore all of the characters' words and make it like fuller. But it is for longer stories.
Do you have any inspirations when it comes to how you write stories? Just like how you have inspirations from how do you draw your visual art?
Yeah, I used to read a lot when I was a kid. And one of my first books, I think it was If There Be Thorns. It was a novel. And at first I didn't understand it because I just had one book and it was the third book in the series. But then I found out later in life and then I read the whole series and it was like it is a very big inspiration to novels and the books I read as a kid. And
Right.
then in my teens, when I started on the internet, on the computer, on the blow, the internet, you know, the boom
Mm-hmm.
of the internet, I discovered Wattpad, like every teenager girl,
Oh,
and
Wattpad.
it also yeah,
Okay.
Wattpad, and it played a role too. The fan fiction and original stories too that I read in there still stick to me to this day.
Like the first novel series that you talked about. You said you first read the third book in the series.
Yeah, and I was like,
How was that?
this doesn't make sense. Like I remember I read it and I was like, no, there's a lot of holes. I don't get it. And then I discovered that there was more books.
Oh wow, that's kind of funny to me. I remember
It
playing.
is.
I,
It
I'm.
is very fun.
it's it kind of reminds me of like when I used to play some video games. I think there was this one game called Alice Madness Returns, and
Oh my god,
I had
that's one of my favorites.
I have to admit that was my I thought that was just a standalone game. I had no idea that that game was a
Yeah.
sequel. So like I was watching a video that was talking about like Alice Madness Returns, and they just made a slight comment saying, "Oh yeah, this is like the sequel of the first American McGee's Alice." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I went on a deep dive of like how I could find and play the first Alice game, and then I had to jump through so many different hoops just to be able to get my hands on it, and I played it. It was a pretty good game. They I wonder if there's I don't want to say they need to make more. I want to see more games like that because I'm sure that there are because there's a lot of people making games nowadays, a little way more than back in the day. It's just a hard, like I said, it all just comes down to like how you like knowing people who knows where to find it or just how people can like network their stuff. But that being said, I love American McGee's Alice and the I love
Yeah,
that.
it
I
is
love that series.
amazing. It is the best game ever, I think. I mean, there's more games, but that is just the best one ever. I love it too. It is one of my favorite games. I remember I haven't played it enough. I think I didn't finish it because I got to play like on a friend's PlayStation
Hmm.
and I didn't finish. But I've seen it on YouTube a lot of times. I can't get enough of it and Life is Strange series. I love that
Oh
too.
yeah, I like the first game. I like the first game a lot. Oh wait, did you also know that the art book of the third Alice game is actually free to download on American McGee's Patreon, I believe? Or like he was crowdfunding the third game of the series, but he's trying to. I think EA still owns the title to that game, but he did a crowdfunding thing to gain enough money to fund a third game of the series, and he just allowed the whole uh, design bible of the third game, spoilers and all, and it's just free to download on his Patreon, I believe,
Yeah,
or the
I
Kickstarter.
remember when it was a popular team. I mean, I think it is still is, but I remember when it first started to
Mm-hmm.
be when it first they started creating it and crowdfunding everything. I remember I was sad. I was saddened because I I didn't get why EA dropped the game or why they just didn't wanted to give the permissions and the rights of the game to him, and I was saddened because they didn't make the third game happen. But the animation series and the art of the game,
There's an
that actually was like a breath of relief
Wait, there's an
because
animated
we got it.
series.
What?
You said there was an animated series of American McGee's Alice.
No, I
Okay,
think they made kind of like shorts of
okay,
the third part of the game
okay.
by a crowdfunding too, I think.
Okay. Okay. But I like I got sidetracked for a second. Like you said that you were reading that novel and you when you were growing up you discovered Wattpad, and what is it about Wattpad that entices entices an audience? Or I notice when I hear people talk about Wattpad, it's mostly like a female audience. But what draws you to that website? Or this is not a plug for Wattpad. I'll let you know. You probably already know about it before, but um, but what is it about these? I guess you would call them store like a I hate to say amateur because that's how it has a negative connotation to it,
Yeah, it has kind of
like
a
a negative.
cliche attached to
But
it.
like, what would you call those kinds of stories? I don't want to say amateur.
Mm, there is good stories in there. Like
Yeah.
I have found them, and it's like really rare,
Hmm.
but they exist. It is just that the platform is full of so many stories, so many fan fiction. Like you can go in there and search for a fan fiction of Alice Matters Returns, and you're gonna find it, and you might like it because there is like some really dumb stuff. I need to say it. There's some dumb things in there, but if you dig deep enough, you're gonna find the good stories. Like there's actually good writers in there, people, talented people, and hobbyists that really care about their stories. And I, for one, I can say that I'm one of those because I put some stories in there too.
That reminds me of how that's an actually a good thing of getting your feet wet, so to say. When it comes, well, is that hands dirty, feet wet? I don't know. There's a lot of sayings of getting started with writing, and that's usually writing fan fiction of your favorite series because you understand the characters that you're writing about, and like your plot line may not be the greatest thing in the world because you're just starting out, but it's understanding the basics of story structure, like how to character writing, and just generalize finishing a project. And finishing a project is probably the most important thing that you can do. Reverting back to earlier in the conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is the nest of many ideas. Like, you have to start somewhere. When you start drawing, it started because you saw something that you liked, or someone told you to do something, and then you drew it and you were like, oh, I like this. So it kind of happens the same with Wattpad. You start looking in there to find something, to read something, or at least in my case. And then I found that you can write the stories in there. And I just started and I went on with it. And I started it. I I began writing in there because the interface, you you load the story, you put the cover, the title, and you just put it in there, and people can just find it and give you feedback. And that is a very important thing to receive when you're starting something, whatever it is, or in any way that you started. The feedback, the response of the people that see what you are doing, it is very important. So, well, what that can be a weird place to read, it can also be a very good tool to use when you're starting to write, or as DeviantArt is to when you're starting to draw.
Hmm. It's I I can really attest to that in a way of saying, well, first thing that you really want to do when you're making making any kind of art is finding out if you're good or not. Well, first you have to finish it. Second, you have to be real with yourself and critique yourself. And not a lot of people knows how to critique themselves, or maybe they're too hard on themselves when they want to get better. So putting your art or whatever you created out there on the internet for people to read and have feedback on is very essential to growing.
Yes,
What are your thoughts?
yes,
Can you
it
add on?
is very essential, and not just criticism, but the constructive criticism,
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna receive harsh criticism there too. It is a possibility, but it doesn't compare to the constructive criticism that you're gonna receive from either the internet people or the real life people. It can be both ways. You can receive both of them, but not all of them are gonna stick to you. At least I remember when not many years ago, I received a lot of harsh criticism from people that didn't really enjoy my art or didn't really wanted to see me grow, but to just make me doubt about what I was doing. Because there's bad people out there too, and some of them, they can't really express themselves, or they see something that you do that they can't, and they don't like that. You can receive that too, but it is important to not let them like destroy the will to create.
I think it's very interesting because when you start creating what you really want to see in the world, it's something that I've noticed. When you start creating what you want to see in the world, you stop focusing, or you focus less on on what other people are making. Or that's something that I noticed because before I was critiquing literal like every media that I saw. I was saying, "Ah, man, they did this, that, and the third wrong. I wish they did X, Y, and Z." But until I started making what I wanted to make, I stopped focusing on that and started focusing on how I can make my thing the best that I can be. And every time I would get some form of criticism, it I always take it back with a way of trying to see where they may have a point, even though if a person never picked up a pen in their life to draw or write anything, at the end of the day, I remember my graphic design teacher once said, you don't argue with your. I know it's if your audience if the audience have to think, you have to go back. You have to do it again. That's a way of. I think that's the key of any kind of visual art or any visual language. If they have to think about it, then you have to relay it in a way where it should be more instantaneous. That's what he was saying with logo design. Another saying that I've heard was if you cannot argue with your audience, and sometimes your audience will know what they want, but don't expect them to know how to reverberate it. I guess vocalize it. They know what they like, but sometimes they don't. You can't expect them to know how to express it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you have a very interesting point there. Like art has to speak for itself, and if people can really see behind it, then it makes it difficult to receive any kind of criticism, because how can I criticize something that I don't understand, for
Mm-hmm.
example?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have one more question for you.
Okay,
How can the people support your goal?
well, my goal is mostly not about being the most recognized artist in the world, but being a good artist. I want to be the best artist that I can be. So if I could ask people to support me, it would be just engage in my content. Like, I want to know what people think. I want to know what they feel about my art. I want to know what my art brings into this world.
Mm,
What is its weight? Like, did it make you cry? Did it make you smile? I don't know. I just want to see. I just want to I just want to create and awake something in people.
nice. Well, my name is Mason McKinney. This has been the Drawing Solo podcast, and I'm with.
The original Harley Ross.
And if you want to learn how to get inspiration from anywhere, then sign up to my newsletter and receive a PDF that'll show you how to do so. My gift to you. Signing out.
Bye.